Hello everyone, let's talk about for loops in Python. In the previous video, we have seen while loops. The while loop keeps looping while its condition is true, which is the reason for its name. But what if you want to execute a block of code only a certain number of times? You can do this with a for loop statement. So basically, a for loop is a way to repeat a set of instructions multiple times. Typically, when you want to process items in a sequence, and the sequence can be like a list, string, or range of numbers. And the basic syntax looks like this. We have a for keyword followed by the variable name, which is item in this case, and the in keyword and a call to the sequence. So the sequence can be again list, string, or range of numbers, followed by a colon and the next line starting with an indentation. So this entire block will be repeated for every item in this sequence. Let's see some examples to understand it more clearly. I am entering a Python shell. Let us see how we loop through a list using a for loop. Let's say that I have fruits, which is list of some fruits: apple, banana, and orange. So I want to print each fruit in one line, one fruit in one line. So for printing the fruits, I use a for loop here. For fruit in fruits, or for item in fruits, or this is the loop variable and it can be anything of your choice. So for fruit in fruits, and the next line will start with some indentation, a tab spaced indentation. I will print fruit. So I'm basically printing this variable here. So it has printed apple, banana, and orange. So basically the for loop has iterated through every item of the list, and every item is assigned to this fruit variable for one iteration. So one item, one iteration in this variable. So in the first iteration for apple, it will print that apple. For the next item banana, it will print banana, and for the next iteration it will be orange that is getting printed. And this is how we iterate through a list for sequence of any items. Let's say we have some string. I want to iterate throughout the letters of the string. In this case, let's say for letter in, I'll type some string here. Let that string be Python. For letter in Python, print letter. So if I print letter, so it will basically print every letter in that string. So each letter will be one item in for this for loop. One of the most common ways to use a for loop in Python is with the range function. And the range function generates a sequence of numbers which is perfect for loops. Let us see a simple example using range. Let us say I want to print something for 5 times. So for I in range, I will take range 5. For I in range 5, meaning this loop will be iterated for 5 times, and the value of I will be starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I ranges from 0 to 4 in this case. So the 0 to 4 is managed by range, and when we use range with only single parameter, it is going to be the end of the range. So I basically starts from 0 and it will end at 5, and the loop will not be executed for 5. So let's say I want to print my name 5 times. Print Dinesh for the ith time. So if I print, it says Dinesh for the 0th time, Dinesh for the first time, Dinesh for the second, third, and fourth time. So basically the I ranges from 0 to 4 because we have given the range until 5. If we give more range, let's say if we are giving range until 10, it will print Dinesh for 10 times. So I use the same statement. So see, it has printed for 0, 1 till 9, which is basically 10 times. This is how range function is useful in for loops, and it's the one of the most commonly used in for loops, and it's also very versatile. So currently we have used only one argument for the range function, but it can take up to three arguments, and the three arguments are different to each other. So in case if we are using only one argument, it will act as the end of the range. But what if we use two arguments? Let's say that I am using for I in range 1 comma 5. So if I use two arguments, and the I will start from the first argument and will end at the second argument, and the second argument is not inclusive, so it will start at 1 and it will run till 4, and 5 is exclusive, and 5 is exclusive. So let me run this same code again. Okay, I'll print Dinesh for ith time. Let us see what happens now. So it says Dinesh for the first time, second, third, and fourth. Unlike the previous cases where it has started from 0, now it has started from 1 and ended at 4, because the range is from 1 to 5. 1 is inclusive and 5 is exclusive. I said that range will accept three parameters. First value is going to be the start of the range, and the next second one is going to be the end of the range, and the third one is going to be the step, basically step which is ideally 1 in a default scenario. So in this case, this step is assumed to be 1. So if I use these three values, so 1, 5, and 1, and run the same code again, it will print the same set of lines because there's no change. And now let us try to change this step and see what happens. So I'm printing for I in range 1, and I'm changing the step to 2, and I'm going to print the same thing. So it has printed the 1, and then it has printed 3, and it has not printed anything else. The reason being, step is the increment value for I. So in this case, so I starts from 1 and it is incrementing by 1 for every other iteration. So from 1 it did 1 plus 1, which is 2, then it did 2 plus 1, which is 3, then it did 3 plus 1, which is 4. If we use this step, it will start with 1, then it will become 1 plus the step 2, which is 3. So I will become 3 here. And then for the next iteration, the I becomes 3 plus 2, which is 5. And we are running the loop only till 4 because the 5 is the stop number. So it will be stopping before 5. And as the I value reached 5, it has not printed anything. And let's try to execute the same for a bigger range, which is 1 to 10, and I'm printing the same. So it has printed 5 times. So first time it is 1, then it incremented by step, which is 2, became 3, then from 3 to 5, 5 to 7, and 7 to 9. And after 9 it will be 11, and our range ends at 10. It's more than 9, so it has exited the loop. And let us also try with a bigger range, which is, let's say, use 3, and let's print the same. See, it has started with 1, then incremented by 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, and then 4 plus 3 is 7, and 7 plus 3 is 10, and it will stop at 9, and 10 is exclusive. So this is how range works. Now this is almost everything about the for loop. Now let's try to see some practical examples. Let's say that we have an exercise to sum the numbers from 0 to 0 to 100. This is going to be the problem statement. In order to sum the numbers from 0 to 100, we are going to use the for loop. So I will store the sum of numbers in a variable called total. Initially, I say that the total is 0. For, let me tell, for number in range, what's going to be my range here? So the range is going to be 101 because I have to sum till 100. So for number in range 101, total equals total plus number. It keeps on adding the numbers until the range 101, which is it will add till 100. So let us try to see if this is providing a correct result or not. So we have executed this code. Now let us print total. So you see that total is 5050, which is correct. And this is much faster than adding numbers manually, right? So we need to add 1 2 3 4 and everything. Using a for loop, we got it very quickly. And in the for loops, you can also nest for loops inside each other. And this is very useful for working with 2D list or generating combination. And we will see more about 2D list in the upcoming sessions. We will just talk about the nested for loops now. So nested for loops meaning a for loop inside another for loop. Let's say that I have a for loop for I in range 4, and inside this for loop with an indentation I will start another for loop. So the another for loop will not have the same loop variable, it will have a different loop variable. Let's say it to be j, for j in range 4. I'm using the same range. Now let's print I and j. You see that we are printing I and j. If we run, it says that I is 0 and j is 0. So it entered this for loop, initial for loop, and then it will complete the inner for loop. After completing the inner for loop, it will come back again to this main for loop. So initially the I is 0 always. When it is 0, it is working on this j for loop, the inner for loop. It's making 0, 1, 2, and 3. And for the second iteration of the outer for loop, it is incremented I to 1. After it has incremented I to 1, it starts from j 0 to 3 again. It will stay at one value for the outer for loop, which is 0, and then it will complete all the iterations of the inner for loop. And then it will increment the outer for loop based on this range, and then execute the inner for loop again for every range present in the inner for loop. So this is how nested for loops works. And along with that, in Python, the Python standard library provides many useful modules. For example, there is something called random library, which we already discussed while we are talking about while loops. And we can import this random library using the import random. And this random will help us generate any random numbers between the given range. Now I want to generate, let's say, 5 random numbers between 1 and 10. So I will use a for loop here. So for I in range, how many numbers we want to generate? We want to generate 5 numbers. So I will use 5. I will print a random number, random dot rand integer between 1 and 10. So I want to generate 5 random numbers. For that I am using a random library in Python. So this will help us generate a random number between 1 and 10. So, and we have to keep in mind that a random number which is generated by this can be regenerated again. So the numbers will not be distinct. So they can be distinct or they cannot be distinct, but we cannot guess if they are unique or not. So if you run this, it has generated 4, 8, 6, 5, 1, 3. So this is how we generate random numbers in Python using a for loop and random library. So this is mostly everything about for loops, and for loops are a powerful tool in Python for iterating over sequences and repeating a code a specific number of times. And they are often more convenient than while loops when you know in advance how many times you want to repeat a block of code. So I recommend you to try creating your own for loops and see what you can do with them. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below.